Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is July 5th, and today we're taking a look at this upper level low that was spinning over the Pacific Northwest. This is 9 a.m. yesterday. We had some good thunderstorms moving up eastern Washington. As we go into the afternoon hours, you can see that we had some good development over the east slopes of the Cascades, Lake Chelan, and we had some flash flood warnings out here. Lots of lightning strikes here. As you can see, this upper level low finally spin into British Columbia here. And by the time the fireworks shows got going, much of Oregon, Washington was fairly dry, so it really didn't inhibit many of the fireworks shows yesterday. And you can see this wraparound moisture coming back into British Columbia here overnight. This continues on into this morning, so some nice precipitation amounts up there into BC. Now look out here, you can kind of see this low pressure spinning off our coastline here and bringing up some showers today. And I wouldn't rule out a lightning strike over the Oregon or Washington Cascades as we move through the afternoon this evening here. So we'll continue to watch that coming up here. Now, looking at the SPC does not have that threat over the Cascades today. It does reintroduce it for tomorrow. If you guys are heading out towards Montana, driving on I-90, heads up for these severe storms that have just been bombarding eastern Montana here the last few days, and it's going to continue for the next few days here as well. Now, checking out SeaTac yesterday, 72 degrees, nowhere near the record high of 92 in 2015. We were in pretty warm stretch there this time 7 years ago. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 straight days of record highs. I think we had 5 straight days of 90 degrees here at SeaTac. And we should be up towards 75 degrees today, I believe. And that's not a bad day. That's right around average. Yesterday was a pretty nice day also. So checking out the HER, we're looking at the 3-kilometer high resolution rapid refresh, and you can see some of these stronger showers moving up the Cascades today here through Oregon into Washington. So I wouldn't rule out a lightning strike across the Cascades today. I was wondering if maybe one of these showers would get over the lowlands, but I don't know if there'll be enough instability for that. Now, checking this out, 10,000 foot winds. This is the European. Generally, for that convection to get out over the lowlands, you need to trigger over the Cascades a lot of the time and move back over the lowlands. That's when we get, sometimes we get some pretty good lightning amounts across western Washington, Oregon, into British Columbia, but we don't see that with this trough. It's not that dynamic. You can see the southerly flow this afternoon that could trigger over the Cascades. And as we go through into Wednesday afternoon, potentially again across the Cascades, as you see the southerly flow, but that doesn't have that southeast component to bring that convection back up over the lowlands. And as we go into Thursday, you can see we're plainly southwest flow. It's going to kick any convection that does happen off the Cascades and move that off to the north and east. If this trough just kind of hangs out for the next few days. Now we'll look at the extended here in a moment, so it looks like we might warm up. So stay with me here for a second, and you can see this troughing that just continues. This is 10,000 foot temperatures here, and this eventually starts to wane here. Then we're going to start to build a ridge down across the southwest portion of the USA. It's going to extend up into the Pacific Northwest, it looks like. There is some disagreement between the GFS and the European on just how strong that ridge is going to be and just how warm we're going to be, but we'll start taking a look at that here right now. You can see the system that brought those thunderstorms to eastern Washington yesterday finally weakened as we redevelop the trough offshore again. Not a dynamic system, but you could get a thunderstorm over the Cascades. And now you see we build this ridge over the southwest here, and then this ridge builds also up to the Pacific Northwest. Gulf of Alaska troughing going here. Good agreement actually between the European and the GFS that the trough will be here and some ridging will be here. But the European kind of kicks this trough towards the area much quicker than the GFS does. The GFS strings together several nice, warm, if not downright hot days for portions of the Pacific Northwest. And the European kind of ends that much quicker. And the European is probably a little bit more believable at this time. Now, taking a look here, 925 millibars, 2,500 feet. This kind of shows that warm temperature aloft that develops here over the southwest. And then you can see as we go on through Monday, you can see this warmth kind of stretch up over BC, Vancouver Island. And this would bring a pretty warm day Monday on into Tuesday, probably here. And then as we go on in through Wednesday, you can kind of see some of this marine influence get in here a bit, but still a fairly warm day for Puget Sound, Willamette Valley, eastern Washington here. But by Wednesday and Thursday, we might start to introduce some of this marine influence here from this trough spinning off the coastline. Now let's take a look at the GFS here. Watch the differences as we go through here. So we're dealing with the trough now, and finally we'll eventually start to build this heat over the southwest. Ridge starts to develop here. Look at that warm air move all the way up through British Columbia here. Again, we're at 2,500 feet here on this chart. You can see that Gulf of Alaska low cranking there, which is helping build this ridge across the region. You see these warm days pumping up through the Pacific Northwest here, and look at the Southwest is just baking at this time. And the GFS is stringing together several really warm days here for the Pacific Northwest, even Seattle here, before finally kicking that trough down through the extended. But we're getting way far out here at this point. This is 12, 14 days in the future, and that doesn't mean much at this point. So right now we're trying to work out the discrepancies between these warm days between the GFS and the European here coming up. Now, taking out the GFS for Seattle, the trough influence here, but these are even above average temperatures here coming up. The GFS did point us to about, 76 yesterday. We didn't quite get there. So these might be on the high side for the next few days for SeaTac, but it kind of hinting at that heat as we go on in through early next week into mid next week. So it's just kind of hinting at it at this point. GFS for Spokane also hinting at that heat for Spokane on in through early and mid next week as well. And the European for Spokane is hinting at that heat as well. Some pretty warm temperatures starting to pop up there in the extended run on the European as we deal with this trough for now. And this is GFS for Seattle. Check this out as we get into early next week. Some of these temperatures are up towards 90 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days flirting with 80s and 90s for the Puget Sound here on the GFS. So we're going to keep watching this as we come up here and see if this continues, or if we'll see if the European is right with maybe two days that get up towards maybe into the 80s possibly. We'll see. Are we headed for a heat wave or just above average temperatures? That's yet to be seen, is the main takeaway from all this. So taking a look at Quileute here, you want to beat the heat, go buy a house here in Quileute, go rent an apartment out there. This is summertime out there, nice into the 70s, a really nice climate out there, especially during the summertime. They start to dry out a bit even on the Washington coast here as we go through the summertime. Very pleasant temperatures. If you really want to beat the heat, move to Ketchikan, Alaska there. Check this out. The control run is generally in the 60s up towards 70 degrees. Summers in Southeast Alaska are very glorious, and you can kind of see that here too. Very pleasant climate. Now check out Brookings, Oregon here. When they're not getting offshore winds, especially in the summertime, they can be pretty chilly comparative to the inland areas here. Look at some of these highs, only up around 65 all the way through the extended, and that's because we don't have any offshore winds forecast for that area at this point. I'm going to show you why that is here in a moment. So taking a look at the GFS here. Now this is going out a little bit. I wanted to highlight this. As we start to get into summertime, we get this Pacific high out here that generally gives this north flow down the coastline. If you ever go out to the Oregon coast, you'll notice how some of these trees are sculpted from these persistent winds out of the north. You'll see the branches that show the impact of these persistent north winds. And so as we go through the extended, look at this. This north wind just keeps going down the coast, and that's pretty typical of summertime here in the Pacific Northwest. And you can imagine this is cooler air off the cold Pacific Ocean here, and it just kind of keeps Brookings, Oregon in that north flow, and you get that nice marine influence. At least until the next time these winds turn offshore, and then Brookings, Oregon can really start to bake. They can get up into the 80s and lower 90s really quickly. So kind of a cool feature of the Pacific Northwest are these north winds that tend to just move down the coastline here during the summer months as the Pacific high really gets established here as we go through July. So kind of an interesting little feature I thought I'd point out there. So yeah, let's watch for these showers moving up today. You'll notice the clouds around. Heads up if you're going through the Cascades. Not much of a threat according to the SPC, but I think that there is a chance for a stray thunderstorm across the higher terrain here of Washington, Oregon today, and a very slim chance into the day tomorrow. Maybe one of those storms will track over the lowlands here as they move up from the southerly flow. But again, not a dynamic system, not a big lightning maker anywhere west of the Cascades here coming up the next few days. But we'll continue to watch off into the extended too. The European and the GFS and the European have some disagreements and just how warm we're going to get through the extended. GFS much more of a heat wave type scenario than the European is showing with that Gulf of Alaska trough. Not too far out there, but we'll see how that develops as we take a look at the model runs tomorrow. So click like, click subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys then.